Hello, everyone, and welcome to this third podcast in the series In the Age of AI, where David Gurteen, Clive Holtham, and myself, Ron Young, will discuss various aspects of artificial intelligence, but in particular today on reasoning in the age of AI and the impact this may have on individuals, especially knowledge workers, knowledge professionals, organizations, and society as a whole. So, apart from agreeing the topic amongst ourselves, our talks are totally unscripted for about 15 to 20 minutes maximum. And we hope that our various perspectives may spark some new insights and some new ideas. So, what do we think about reasoning in the age of AI? Let me start with a very simple dictionary definition of reasoning as the act of thinking about something in a logical, sensible way, or the process of thinking about something in order to make a decision. We're told that there are actually four types of reasoning. There's deductive, inductive, abductive, and by analogy. Deductive reasoning is through logic. Inductive reasoning is by observation. Abductive reasoning as the most likely explanation, given there's incomplete evidence, or the best guess, if you wish. So these definitions, to start with, are they sufficient in the age of AI? And do we even think that AI reasons, for example? So who would like to start on that one? Clive, okay.
Let's let Clive go.
I think by the way, I'm Clive Holtham, professor at Bayes Business School, and our university, following a merger, has just been renamed to City St. George's University of London. And my immediate reaction, Ron, is around the use of the word reasoning by the technology sector.
Right.
It's been, particularly over the last 6 months, very heavily sort of recycled by the sector. And they're kind of implying that your excellent definitions are now capable of being fulfilled by AI.
Yes.
I'm in no doubt that AI can mimic human reasoning. No doubt at all about that. But I'm actually quite concerned that to a layperson, they may not fully understand that there are kind of doubts around this. One of the key points to me is that if AI is only mimicking reasoning, what are those missing components that are included in human reasoning that are not present in machine reasoning? And in my mind, these are issues such as to do with emotion, empathy, trust, relationships,
morality.
So I'm not against the idea of there being a concept of machine reasoning, but I don't want it to go unnoticed that this is not to the exclusion of human reasoning.
Indeed. Thank you, Clive. David, what are your thoughts?
I would pretty much agree with Clive there. It's like a lot of AI. It's mimicking things. It's not. None of it's quite the same as whatever we're doing as a human doing it. So, but it does it so well that it's at times you get you get taken in. I mean, I was chatting with ChatGPT earlier, and it really did seem like I was talking to, a real person, like, because I know damn well I'm not. So I agree with Clive on those issues, and I'm not too sure that we need to change any of your definitions, Ron. I mean, I think those still stand. Whether we need a new definition, maybe we call it machine reasoning, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I think I'm very much of the same view. But let me try to provoke a bit,
Yeah,
because
go on.
there are people who will argue that reasoning is a distinctly human thing. Clive, I think you're leaning towards accepting machine reasoning and think, and I agree. I don't think that any of us are really saying that. It's the same within our first series. We talked about knowledge in the age of AI, and then conversations in the age of AI, and now reasoning in the age of AI. And Clive, no doubt you'll be talking about education in the age of AI. We're not suggesting, are we, that machines do exactly the same? I mean, my understanding of this is that machines have enabled us to produce the best models towards our understanding of how knowledge is, what knowledge is, how knowledge is, our understanding of how we reason better. I'm not suggesting anyway that it's the same. And the emotional aspects completely agree with you. But I do think I can say in my experience of using these models, that they are very powerful reasoning assistants, if that
Yes,
makes sense.
assistants, they're assistants. Yeah,
I I
totally agree with you, Emma.
I work as you know, as I've mentioned earlier. I'm also working with three or four. I'm finding it difficult now to keep up with them because, for example, I use OpenAI as an assistant. I use Claude as an assistant, Gemini as an assistant. I think most people are playing with those. DeepSeek I've been playing with as an assistant, and now I've just recently started with Grok. But they're suggesting from December, they've suggested that we're in the age of reasoning systems, reasoning machines. And I've been using them to help me solve my problems or to help me reason. And I found it really powerful. I don't need to sort of differentiate between the human and the machine. I just think it's enhancing me, or am I misunderstanding?
I'm I'm partly concerned with the way that this is being marketed or used in marketing. Um, if we take an example, which is deep research,
Yes.
uh, which is definitely, a big step forward. There's a couple of aspects of deep research which I'd like to touch on. The first is the very clever way in which it may take 30 minutes or more to get a response from deep research, and partly to sort of fill up that time, you can ask it to expose its reasoning, what they call its reasoning process, so that it identifies, it goes through and says, well, now I'm going on looking for this, and now I'm analyzing that, and so on and so forth. And this is quite an impressive looking feature.
Yes.
One concern I've got is how far we can actually trust those statements. Is this simply an element of marketing deep research as opposed to really telling us what is going on? It's most, as I say, it's very, very impressive, and gives the illusion that this is doing actually slightly more than mimicking human reasoning. So that's a matter of concern to me. The other is the claim that deep research can carry out PhD level research. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this particular issue, but in some areas, people are saying this is already having an impact on recruiting junior staff to consulting and lower level jobs whose task historically has been doing the sorts of things that deep research claims it can do. So there are already kind of economic consequences of this and employment consequences, which are in part based on marketing hype as opposed to substantive reality.
When we have conversations like this, so I reflect on it myself, there's part of me that says a lot of the time, I don't care. I don't care how it's doing it.
You have said that several times.
I think I have, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I'm never really going to understand whether it's reasoning or whether it's knowledge or whatever. Does it really matter? The real issue is this beneficial to me? Is this helping me? So if I'm trying to think something through, like I wrote something only yesterday that I was quite pleased with, and then I simply asked ChatGPT to criticize it. It tore it apart, and probably 90% of what it said I totally agreed with. I was in a very sort of myopic sort of frame of mind. I completely missed it, and so it was an aid. It was helping me with my reasoning, and there were a few things that, at least to my mind, it had got totally wrong. And even if it wasn't wrong, it was prompting me to think about it. So as long as I'm in charge of the final outcome, whether it's my thinking or the writing,
Yes.
there's part of me that says, I don't care. But maybe as it starts to, have some agency of its own, it can start to do things on its own. Then, without human supervision, if you like, then I might start to reconsider my position, because do I totally trust it? At the moment, I can make that decision for myself. In the future, I may not be able to.
Yeah. In trying to understand better myself what was being claimed about reasoning systems, first of all, if I take DeepSeek, I ask DeepSeek what's the reasoning process you go through, and I can just read you the steps, and then perhaps take Clive's point about whether it's actually doing it or not. But the steps it said it's going to do is understand the core concern or understand the context of what it's going to do. And then it's going to go out and gather information and/or ask me for more information it doesn't have but thinks it needs. And then it's going to analyze the nature of these core issues and analyze the key themes and formulate and explore different perspectives and refine the perspectives, and then propose some practical steps and synthesize insights and provide a comprehensive response and encourage further exploration. Now that sounds very grand. That's a wonderful process and steps. So the question is whether it actually does that or not. But Grok.
But
Sorry, David, go
let's
ahead.
just pause you there one second.
Yeah.
I think if you asked anybody how they went about it, they might say something very similar.
Yes.
The way that we do something is usually very logical, steps like that. But in reality, it's far messier and far more iterative. And we jump around and we start with a conclusion and we're backwards. So that statement for me, just, it doesn't quite ring true. Well, maybe it is. I mean, maybe that is the way it is actually doing it, but it's certainly not the way I think most humans do it. Although, as I say, I think most humans would claim to do it that way, but in reality, they do it quite differently. But what did Grok have to say?
With Grok, what I did with Grok was I was simply asking it because, as you know, I'm involved, as some of you are, in international standards. And I personally feel with knowledge and innovation and AI, they should be more integrated. So I decided to ask it that problem, and very, very briefly, I was asking it, and it said, well, it said, this is what I need to do to outline these key steps to integrate. I'm going to, first of all, identify these relevant standards. I'm then going to understand the common elements between them. I'm then going to map the processes. I'm then going to develop an integrated policy. I'm going to establish objectives for integration and implement the processes and document them and train and communicate people and monitor and measure. And these are all steps of the process. So it told me what it was going to do, and then it actually went one by one and provided for me the output, which I found quite impressive, to be frank, in the beginning. But if I may, can I come back to Clive's point? Because one of the things I hope we might talk about was the impact of what, if it's mimicking or whatever, the impact it has on knowledge workers. And Clive, you were talking about how this might affect people. Can you tell a little more about that, what you were thinking?
Yes, and I'd like to link that to David's point about the way it visibly helps him. David is an experienced knowledge worker, writer, thinker, critic, communicator, and has a huge amount of agency in understanding what is going on intellectually and from a technological point of view as well. That's very different from, let's say, a young person faced with the identical, given the identical problem. David knows enough, has insights that a younger person won't have. So, although I think, David, I totally accept what you're saying about yourself, when it comes to younger people using this who lack the full kind of contextual understanding, insight, self-criticality, I think we're looking at a very different picture. And if you give me just another minute,
yes, please.
I'd just like to expand that, which is there's now a body of evidence that the very things that we're talking about, which is exposing the reasoning and being very systematic about the way that AI works, is in some areas leading to something called cognitive offloading, which means that humans basically trust the machine far too much and are starting to lose the intrinsic kind of criticality that David has got when he looks at technological outputs. So we may now be coming up, if AI can very successfully mimic human reasoning, we may actually see a decline in real human reasoning because they've just simply given themselves over to the machine.
Yeah, it's a big concern.
Yeah, and in fact, that reminds me of the film I watched just a few days ago. I think it's called Idiocracy. Have you come across that film? In 2005, some people were put into a capsule, and actually they woke up in 2500 and found that the intelligence gone to a very, very low level indeed. And they were finding it very difficult to communicate with others. It's a comedy, Idiocracy, 2005, and many AI researchers have said, take a look at that as what possibly might happen in the future. Yeah. Okay, so I think time time is up now. So can I just briefly ask you, is there any insight or idea you've got from this conversation you'd like to leave with us, or not?
I think the main thing for me is to get a debate going, not only between the three of us, but to openly start asking the right sorts of questions. And I'm particularly concerned, for example, about government decision making on AI. And we've had an announcement today from the Prime Minister about how AI is going to be used to revolutionize public services. And looking at some of the materials that are coming out of government on AI, frankly, there's a massive naivety about the role of AI, let's say in the next 2 or 3 years.
Thank you, Clive. David.
Yeah, I think we've as you say, it's that naivety, and I think we're all prone to it at times. I mean, the point that you made, Clive, about students, younger students, again, I guess increasingly even quite young students, even school children, that they're going to start to rely on the technology very heavily, and that's going to have a massive impact. And how do we respond to that? It seems to me, again, hopefully you're going to talk about this. We talk about this in the next session when we talk about education. How does the education system adapt to cope with this brave new world? That's because it's not going away. We are the ones that are going to have to adapt to it. Fun.
Yeah, I agree with you both. And so thank you very much, David. Thank you very much, Clive. And we're going to look forward to future sessions in the age of AI. Thank you.